For 9 episodes, we've looked backwards. Today, we turn around because eventually studying the past has to become useful for building the future. I'm Dr. Mark Ali, population health researcher and implementation scientist, and I herald our humanity. This is The Conversion, and today we complete season 1. Throughout this season, we have explored moments when human beings were forced to confront profound change. Different circumstances, different generations, but underneath them was something remarkably consistent. The world changed, and people had to decide what to do next. That's really what this season has been all about. Not history, but rather human adaptation. History gives us evidence that people, communities, institutions, and entire societies can change, but it also teaches us that change cannot automatically produce progress. What comes next depends, at least partly, on what people decide to build. And that brings us to our final discussion, rebuilding the future. We're living through another extraordinary period of transition. The world is not what it was just a year ago, and we must accept that. Artificial intelligence is accelerating, institutions are being challenged, and the ways we lived and relate to one another is changing. We can spend our time trying to predict what comes next, or we can ask a more important question. What do we want to come next? Prediction assumes the future is something happening to us. Preparation recognizes that we are the participants in creating the future. That is where From Culture to CUREture takes on its fuller meaning. Culture is what we inherit. It gives us ways of living and understanding the world that we were handed. And some of that inheritance is beautiful. Some of it is not. CUREture asks us to become intentional about that difference. What should we carry forward? What needs to be repaired? And what should be refused? And what should definitely not be pushed into the future? That is the conversion. And this is why I approach these conversations as a population health research and implementation scientist. Research can not only document what has happened to people, it should help us understand how conditions uh, work. How well can we adapt them to make them better for us? How do we make better decisions? What happens next? And of course, implementation means eventually we have to do something with what we know. That's where I believe we are now. We don't have to know exactly what artificial intelligence will become before strengthening our human relationships. We don't have to predict the next crisis before strengthening our communities. We can begin now. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of season 1. Preparation is itself an intervention. When communities organize and build relationships before crises arrive, they create the ability to respond rather than to react. And they protect something that I believe will become increasingly important as technology grows more capable, our humanity. I'm not opposed to progress. I'm not opposed to the assumption that technological progress automatically equals human progress. A society can become more advanced while its people become more isolated. It can become more productive while people struggle. So our challenge is not simply to build a more advanced future. Our challenge is to build a more human future. And this period of change gives us that opportunity to intentionally choose the norms, behaviors, and practices that elevate our humanity rather than diminish it. That's why this season ends here, not as an answer, but as a call for responsibility. For 9 episodes, we've examined how people before us responded when their world changed. Now history is being written around us. Someday people may ask, what did we do? Did we simply watch? Or did we recognize the moment and begin building the conditions we wanted to see? Those that will follow us will inherit our choices. Now that we have exposed behaviors and harms of humanity, what will we build and how will we build different paths? That question will not be answered by what we say. It'll be answered by what we build. So as we close season 1 of the conversion, I'll leave you with one final question. Now that we know change is here and we know the future is not predetermined, what are we willing to build together to make sure humanity thrives through the transition? That question is where our next work begins. Thank you to everyone who participated in these conversations. You challenged ideas, you shared your experiences, you questioned, you listened, and most importantly, you showed up. Thank you so much. This was never intended to be a lecture series. It was intended to be a conversation. And we've only just begun. We're already expanding access to these programs and other educational programs. More importantly, we've begun local action designed to help people reclaim their power as governors of their own health outcomes. So continue to join us, continue to share your views, and let's see what we can build together. I'm Dr. Mark Hali, population health researcher and implementation scientist. I herald our humanity. This has been season 1 of the conversion from culture to curature. So until we meet again, be well.